Welcome again to the 1760 sessions where we talk to founders building systems and impact. I'm Harry. You've probably seen me before from 1760 Strategic AI, and I'm today joined by Laura, founder of The Fantastic by Way of Grey, a human-first coaching practice helping high achievers find stability, self-determination, and sustainable change by embracing the messy middle, we call it. Laura spent 20 years in advertising, most recently has been a very senior VP before pivoting into her coaching role. Rooted in positive psychology and behavior change, Laura, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Harry. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded intro, but
That was wonderful.
I
Thank you.
felt
I
like
need to go back and write that down.
I felt like giving you the full intro.
Thank
So,
you.
to kick off with, I obviously know a bit, but our listeners don't know anything at all. What led you to start By Way of Grey?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again for having me. Yeah, By Way of Gray has been something that has been floating in my brain for a very long time. But if we back up a little bit to kind of the beginning of, let's call it my adult story, I kind of just entered into marketing and advertising very, very quickly, right? It happens very fast when you're an adolescent and a young adult, right? I wanted to go into psychology and was convinced by several trusted adult advisors that business was the way to go, right? America.
Yeah.
And so I pivoted and I picked up the narrative, the social narrative. Okay, I am a woman in corporate America. I'm going to get as many degrees as I possibly can. I'm going to get all of the internships. And before I knew it, I was a decorated marketing professional planning a wedding because I grew up in the southern United States. And that's what you do. You get a good job, you take care of the house, you
And you
get
stick
married
with the
early,
craft.
and you pop out some kids, right?
Yeah.
And I picked up on that narrative because what happened is I was raised, like a lot of us, in a household that was very traumatic, very stressful. It really, I had models, role models in parents that were extremely flawed individuals because they had inherited their parents' turmoil. And so what I was looking for was a quick path to success. This was the quick path to success. Get a good corporate job, get married, secure your future. And then all of a sudden, like so many of us do, 10 years in, 12 years into this journey, I woke up in my early mid 30s and recognized that I didn't know whose life I was living. And this is something that we don't recognize as, oh, I've picked up someone else's narrative. It comes forward as what we would call dysfunction. And I don't mean dysfunction in a negative way. I just mean dysfunction in a way that is something isn't right internally. And that pushes us into eventually, some of the risk areas of depression, anxiety, compulsive disorders, PTSDs, right? Like this is the birthplace, the breeding ground of what we now categorize as mental illness. Right. And so ultimately, I became fairly dysfunctional. I started leaning on substances, but I was such a high performer and I was the breadwinner and I was getting promotion after promotion and people liked working with me and I was making amazing things and my ego was just inflating, right? And I
Yeah.
was getting pay increases and, really just, I could go in and own a room and feel really buzzy. And, it was just all based in getting the nicest things, consumerism,
Mhm.
getting the next title and paycheck, which was, of course, this patriarchal kind of hierarchy that we all try to climb in Western civilizations, right? And I felt myself just tightening up. Now, that was on top of things from my childhood, right? PTSD, anxiety, and depressive disorders. And this sounds bad, right? But really, my story is pretty average for an American, right? Where we're given this narrative and we're just told the pain is part of life. Get happy, my grandmother used to say, because happiness is a choice, right? Now, we can spend forever talking about what causes this dysregulation, but going back to the story of By Way of Gray and
Yeah.
how it was born. So I really just, I started recognizing my dysfunction. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I just need to work out more. Maybe that's what it is. I just need to
We
get
all
rid of
do that.
the energy. Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
exercise more. Let's get some, what I call it, gym inspiration. Let's get gym
That's
inspired, and
that's
let's try
right.
and get the hormone. Let's try and get the hormones kicking, endorphins kicking. Sorry, and it doesn't always work that way. Past experiences, I've injured myself, but it's
Yeah.
rooted with something else that I needed to sort out.
Exactly. And this is kind of how this story starts, right? I spent the next 6, 7, 8 years. I think we're talking I left my marriage immediately. I woke up, I had this epiphany, and I was like, ooh, the first thing I need to do is I need to get out of this relationship. I immediately started
Yeah.
looking at everything outside of me that I needed to change. I left my relationship. I switched agencies a couple of times. I moved. I went to India several times. I tried to eat, pray, love my way
Whereabouts?
through it, right? And I really bit onto this yoga practice, right? And the
Okay.
yoga practice forced me to go internal. And the reason it forced me to go internal is because I was somatically moving my body in ways in yoga, and the physical practice is not even a baby step of what yoga truly is. Again, a whole nother podcast of what yoga is and the asana practice, the movement practice, actually being a very small part of one 8-pronged system that yoga is. Yoga is a way of life. It's not
Yeah.
a physical exercise. But as a part of that, yoga is made to move your bodies in ways that the body needs, that the mind may stop you from doing, right? So what I found is I would go into these classes and I would have these really intense hip openers. And what we know about the physical body is that a lot of emotion is stored in the hips, especially for females. And I would burst into tears in the middle of these workouts. And I was just like, what is happening? So I continued down this journey of I want to be a yogi because I want to be this physically fit, top of the rung kind of. It was very ego driven what got me into yoga, but yoga eventually began to break that ego down. And that is when it all snapped. And this is where By Way of Gray came to life, because what I recognized for the first time in my adult life, and I think at this time I'm 33, 34 years old,
Yeah.
change, burnout, distress, dysregulation, they are all inside jobs. It's all inside jobs. You can spend your entire life changing the things around you. But until you go into yourself and get a key understanding of what has happened to you in the past, not for judgment, for understanding. This isn't a blame game. We're not here to blame our parents. We know they had to struggle just like their parents had to struggle, right? The generational trauma is real. So it's looking back in a way to understand what they were up against, understand what gaps they left, and then take ownership of ourselves, right? This is where inner child work comes to play. This is where getting back in touch with those fundamental
In
building blocks.
Just for our listeners, it's instead of following how I see it, a subconscious track
Mm,
that you're supposed to follow.
mm.
And to the internal core of you, you may not want to follow that track. That may not be your destiny, but this is because it's so deeply rooted in you from generation upon generation of someone following that track. And I think a lot of what you're describing happening in the US happens in the UK as well.
Oh, yeah. And it
Um,
should be Western, right? It should be
yeah, of course.
industrialized societies. I'm just making it easy by saying America, but it really is, yeah, Western.
So you said the next thing was going inside yourself. You're painting a fantastic story. If you could carry on, that would be awesome. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I should speed it up. Yes. So I started going inside of myself, and this was the work. this work, my test, fail, test, fail, test, succeed a little bit, fall back, test again. That
Yeah.
whole process is now what I bring forward in my coaching program, right? It is kind of my job is to bring forward the frameworks, the methodologies, the psychological understanding. But the client's job is to bring forward all of the actual tangible work that needs to be done. So, what my job is to create a safe space with some roadmaps, right, in my back pocket. But it's really, and this is kind of why scalability, if we talk about business, in coaching becomes difficult because the coaching experience is so personalized. It is just as personalized as, I would say, traditional talk therapy, not modern therapy, which is a little bit more meds check, 15-minute kind of
Yeah.
base. But if you think back to like the origins of talk therapy, Freud, he got, not saying that that was the perfect methodology. Lots of spin-off conversations, but talk therapy was meant for you to really intimately get to know someone, right? And so, in order to do that, you can't really just spin out digital programs. You really have to understand somebody's value system, their strengths, their learning styles, the way that they navigate their own self-talk. Is it negative? Is it positive? How can you begin to help them to reframe from negative to positive if that is a thing, right? So we're talking about a very intricate process, going into the depths of your history, your psyche, your family systems, and your environment, your current environment, your current behavior, your adaptability, and your ability to instill motivation and drive in yourself. This is nearly impossible work to do alone because our brain is trying to survive in this modern jungle where we think an email is a tiger coming out of the woods, but our fundamental needs for safety, understanding, belonging aren't being met. So how are we as a civilization supposed to then elevate ourselves up to the next level of consciousness, right? And
Yeah.
go into this um, operation of thrive instead of survive. The reality is that the majority of Western civilizations, of Western cultures, simply don't have the base level hierarchical needs met to then expect people to rise above, right? So how do we start at that foundation?
There's an argument, and I'm sorry to
Mm,
bring this up, but
yeah.
argument that's potentially done on purpose.
Yeah. Well,
Probably for another podcast.
another podcast. Yes.
Yeah.
If I were a benevolent ruler versus what would I do versus if I were an evil ruler, right? That's kind of the conversation. Ask ChatGPT that question if you're
Okay.
curious.
Awesome. So it's incredibly personable. It's, I think you mentioned unto me when we had a previous call, ancient wisdom
Yeah,
with modern modalities, if I'm correct.
that's right.
So what's the bigger picture when you're pursuing that phrase then?
Yeah. So, as much as I would love to just evacuate the modern world and move to Bali and live in the jungle, the reality is that's not the world we live in anymore. And technology has come in a major way, and technology is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about the bubonic plague because of technological advances. You and I are able to have this conversation right now because of
Because,
technological advances, which is
yeah,
amazing, right? There are so many good things that come from technology. But when you look at the science of the human brain, right? Think about evolution all time, right? We're talking about tens of thousands of years that this brain that we have today has
yeah,
been driving the human species, right? And excuse me for shifting.
no worries.
But the brain takes a lot of time to evolve. Species take a lot of time to evolve. So we think about this whole thing, and our human brains have not evolved in tens of thousands of years all that much. But in the last 200 years, the way that we operate, the way that we as humans receive and give transmissions of information, right? It's all flipped on its head. And we're seeing the impacts of that. This is not a groundbreaking conversation that we're having right now. But the thing is that our bodies, because our bodies have and our brains have not evolved, right? We've still got the three core parts of our brain that are operating the same as our ancestors, which is the hippocampus, right? Which is
Yeah.
memory, the amygdala, which is fight or flight, and your prefrontal cortex, which helps with your decision making. That fight or flight piece, that amygdala, that's the big alarm that goes off in your brain when something is about to happen or when you perceive danger. Again, not evolved, hasn't changed. So our brains simply can't combat the amount coming at them all the time. And this is why the bodies are responding with, again, I go back to that list of depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms. Our children are having issues with learning. We're seeing tremendous amounts of ADHD, ADD, right? All of these things that previous generations, even down to allergies, right? The way that our food is processed because of
Yeah,
changing
yeah.
technology, right? And so, anyway, the whole concept of ancient wisdom is that we can't skew completely to leveraging technology. Look, I have an Apple Watch, I have an Oura Ring. I am all about leveraging technology to better understand things. But what it can't do is replace the humanity, the heart, the mind, the soul, the connectedness, the consciousness that we
It's
have
been
as.
around for however many of years. It's
That's right.
irreplaceable.
That's right. So it's about leaning into the quiet stillness that's required for our ancient wisdom to come forward. Because you have to listen for it. You have to
Yeah.
watch for it. You have to feel it. It's a whisper. It's not a yell. So what you're doing is if technology is a yell and ancient wisdom is a whisper, think about how few people are actually hearing that message from their own bodies, right? Anyway, so ancient wisdom, we have to slow down. We have to understand. We have to calm down a little bit and pay attention. But we can expedite how we can do that by leveraging the benefits of modern technology.
So, was going into my next question.
Yeah.
It's, would you leverage something like an Aura Ring? I'm sat here wearing a Whoop, for example.
Mm.
So, would you saying you're leveraging modern technology to help you with something to do with ancient wisdom, for example? Is something like an Aura Ring something that you would leverage?
That's right. So
Okay.
what my Aura Ring tells me is that I didn't get really good quality sleep last night. So I know that I need to go back and figure out how to make sure that whatever marker was off, whether it be my heart rate or, oxygen levels or whatever. Yeah, okay. Well, what did I do last night? I watched TV until 11 p.m., right? Okay, I know that I need to go back and do a little bit more internalization. I know that my circadian rhythms were off a little bit. I know that I was maybe exposed to blue light a little bit later, right? And I noticed that my brain activity was, my body was in a less restorative state. So now I have to go back to that ancient wisdom and say, what do I need to regain that restorative state? So the
Very cool.
technology allows us to know what we need to pay attention to, which is great. But then what happens is people get really busy and they say, oh shit, I've got to go back and I've got to make sure that I'm more restorative. But then the stress and the noise and the yelling starts and they can't hear their own ancient whispers anymore. And so then, we get a little further down the coaching, but eventually once we have a good foundation of what we want health to look like as a client, then we build a roadmap towards it. Then the final step is setting those boundaries. So boundaries have become a dirty word in our
So
society.
hard to set.
Yeah, like it's like that we're keeping we're keeping everybody else out. And it's like, no, that's not a boundary. A boundary is actually protection for yourself, right? It's not about anybody else. It's about maintaining your own ability to listen to that ancient wisdom and understand what you need to be the best version of yourself, to then be the best version to others, right? Again, we go back to that phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. It, I can't be my best self if I'm depleted, if I can't show up with good energy to give to my clients, to hold space for them to be safe and heard and give them that quiet space, then I'm helping no one. So I love when people are like, oh, I have to give, give, give. So everyone else is around me is taken care of. And I'm like, but if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of anyone around you
Yeah.
because you're moving quickly. You are becoming part of that yell when you're not taking care of yourself. And nobody benefits from yelling.
No one at all.
No.
I love that. A lot of the people that we speak to on this podcast are tried and tested on their own product or their
Mhm.
own therapy or their own experiences, and that's what essentially a lot of these aha moments that create these small businesses and create these organizations like yourself is something that's happened with their own internal experience, and they want to share that back with the world. And I absolutely love to see it. And actually, I'd love to talk to you offline about a lot of this because I'm sure there's plenty that I could help with. I sit there, you mentioned a lot of things about aura-ing. I sit there with my Whoop being like, okay, bad sleep last night. What was it down to? Okay, I was up late last night. I didn't read my book. Whole host of things.
Mhm.
Love to touch base with you on that offline. So,
Absolutely. And just one final thing on that. There is
yeah.
also a negative side to too much information. We live in the age of information. So if you're not going to do something about it, save yourself the stress of collecting the information,
Ah, well,
right?
it's almost like my Whoop keeps telling me night after night that I'm tired and I'm not getting enough sleep and I've got poor recovery, and then I need exercise for my own mental health in the morning. So I'm not going to suddenly be like, right, I'm going to stop doing what makes me feel good
That's
because
right.
this technology is telling me not to do it. So
Yeah.
it's getting the balance and actually not overdoing it, but using the information where necessary.
That's right. And that is one of the fundamental principles of by way of gray is
Okay.
that you're not missing information. You are missing integration. We live in a time period where you don't even have to really go to a professional to get an answer. You can log on to any medical journey or journal and get any information that a doctor would tell you, right? So it's not information that we're looking for. It is the ability to see it through and change our behaviors so that that information becomes activated.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just becomes another stress point because then you don't want to forfeit your workouts to get more sleep. And then what are you doing? You're feeling guilty because that piece of technology is telling you that you're doing it wrong.
Hit the nail on the head.
But your ancient wisdom is telling you that you're doing it right.
Yeah.
So what are you going to listen to? My hope for you is that at some point you get to the point where it is always the ancient wisdom that you're going to listen to.
Yeah.
But we're not trained to listen to ourselves. We are trained to listen to the voices around us telling us where we belong, what we should do, and how we should show up.
So I'm a firm believer in gut instinct. This is
Yes,
probably very relatable to your coaching, then I assume.
yes, yes. And, as a coach, I've always felt that I was very intuitive. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. There's a little
Yeah.
bit of black magic, magic down there. So in our family, we just joke that the Cajun women have a very deep, witchy sense of
Yeah.
intuition.
Yeah.
No, it's because I've been able to maintain some form of connection to the communication coming from my body. That's the only magic secret to being able to leverage your intuition. And when I tell you that I shut my intuition down a lot, right? Like I will I just got out of a very difficult 6-year relationship.
Yeah.
I knew on the first date, but I dismissed the anxiety in my body as butterflies, which is what so many of us do. Oh, I feel something inside. It must mean that I'm in. No, that it could be a warning sign. The hair on the back of my neck stood up when he walked in, right? And I was like, ooh. And now looking back, I'm like, holy, I could have saved myself 6
6 years.
years of all of this.
Everything's a learning curve.
That's right. But instead, I listened to the what? The yell. You should be in a relationship. You're 34. You're divorced. You're the breadwinner. You're unlovable. You must be unlovable. You have to show your worth by being in a relationship. I'm about to turn 40 now. I'm 39 years old, and I'm just realizing that I am enough on my own.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the journey. And that's the thing, everybody. You're looking externally for what you need to change because nobody taught you how to do the hard work.
I love it.
Yeah.
So many lessons learned for myself, etc. moving forward. So let's talk about the business now.
Yeah.
So what do you consider your greatest successes so far, say with clients or content you've produced?
Honestly, I have had this is not about me. First, let me start with that. But every client that has gone through my 6-month program
Yeah,
at the end has either verbally or in written reviews said that it is a life-changing program.
amazing.
Now, what I will say is it's not life-changing because of me. It's life-changing because it gives people tools that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And again, a safe space to explore those tools and no risk of diagnosis. And this is important because if you're looking at the difference between a coach and a therapist, right, that's the difference.
Yeah,
I'm not listening to diagnose and prescribe you. I'm listening to help you reframe yourself into a more productive headspace. And so, really, the fact that my clients come out and without a doubt say that their lives have changed for the better because of the program, you you can't buy that, right? Like that is my purpose. I have discovered is to help people kind of live in that missing middle without so much suffering. And we're able to do that with the program. But again, it comes down to knowing the right levers to pull and looking inside instead of externally. So what I know to be true about the program that I've developed is that it's built in research backed studies, and it works because it is fundamentals. It's not bells and whistles.
it's
It's just going back to the core.
well, I was
Mhm.
literally about to took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, so it becomes about simplicity and quiet reflection and consideration, which is again ancient wisdom, not new modern ways of
As,
work.
as you said before, it's ancient wisdom, modern modalities.
Right. And so the challenge becomes being able to keep the integrity of that in a digital world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so your successes have been good so far. Fantastic reviews,
Yeah.
life changing, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely love to hear. But on the downside of things, we're not going to stay in the negative too long. But what was a major setback or lesson from transition out of agency life that changed how you maybe coach or build systems today?
Oh yeah. Well, so in the agency world, my role was account management, which basically just means that you are kind of the one figurehead that's responsible for an entire creative execution, right? So you're working with internal stakeholders at your agency, creatives, copywriters, strategists, people like that are actually coming up with the ideas and the creatives. But more importantly, you're working with the clients to make sure that you're bringing forward what they need most. In that role, my job was to be a really good listener,
Yeah,
ask really hard questions, try to understand how to distill very complex information into simple, actionable steps, and then make sure that the plan continues on as expected. And then wrapping everything up at the end with some metrics on how it went. Do we need to optimize? Do we need to change? Do we continue? Do we stop? That is exactly what I'm doing in health coaching.
Yeah.
It's just with a human's health instead of a creative campaign. Now, I would say the biggest challenge associated with that is that in advertising, I was considered an expert. In coaching, I am a resource, but I am never an expert on my client's life. They are an expert on
They're
their
the
life.
expert. Or
So,
if not, you're trying to make them the expert.
right, exactly. But that comes from them, right? That's not me teaching them something.
Yeah.
That's me helping them to see it in themselves. So, the biggest challenge was how do you reframe yourself from an expert to a partner, right? And that becomes an ego challenge. And I do find that so many other entrepreneurs that I'm friends with, and it's not a malicious thing. It's not an ego because we want an ego and we are narcissists, right? It's an ego because we've worked really, really hard to gain expertise in something and now we want to share that. But it gets messy. And I would say the biggest challenge was really understanding that I am no
Treat
longer in that expert
I
position.
was gonna say you were probably treating it just like another process because that's what you've been trained to do for all these years.
That's right.
It's
I
not
know the steps. I can take you through the steps. Follow me.
coming from an AE background myself, obviously very similar to that of an account management. It's that process and it's trying to break hold of it when you're speaking with people, particularly in what I'm doing with strategic AI. It's not it's completely different to what I've done before.
Right.
Um, so you offer one-to-one coaching. Do you have any other offers, programs, workshops, or community? Would love to hear about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I am in the middle of building all kinds of fun things, right? Like I want to invest in really developing a byway of great community and safe space again for people to be able to come and ask questions and field things. One-on-one coaching is definitely my bread and butter, my love, right? It's what I got into this to do is get to know people on a deep level and just help
And
them to
solve them.
uncover.
Yeah.
But a few other programs that I'm working on are group coaching opportunities. And this would be either biweekly or weekly calls, depending on what the group needs. And the benefit there is it starts to really build that community, it kind of in its own incubator bubble, right? With each of the cohorts. And then I can put those cohorts together to start building that bigger community. The benefits to group coaching are, well, it's a little bit less taxing on my end because instead of 10 hours to service 10 clients, right, we're all in a room working together for 1 hour. And that allows me to build additional digital programs and, the resources for people on the side, right? So I can do more when we get the groups up and running. But what I'm really excited about is actually this new program that I'm working on, and it's specifically curated for people who are investing in retreats. So, retreats or even yoga teacher trainings, things like that, or exercise class trainings. People that are making an investment in their health, right? And they're doing something big to try to change it. What I found about retreats is that people will make a big investment, right? In the United States, if you want to go to Bali or you want to go to Greece or Croatia or Mexico, you're usually looking at somewhere between $3,500 to $5,000 to travel without a plane ticket, to
Not
travel
cheap.
somewhere to immerse yourself in this experience. That is wonderful. And as a burnout coach, highly recommended that you take your paid time off. But what happens is we don't change the foundations. We short term change the environment that we're in and the information that we're getting and the vibrations around us. And then we go right back to the status quo. And then people wonder why they can't take those learnings with them. So I'm developing a new program around specifically for integration post retreat. So you invest in a week retreat, 10-day retreat, 30-day retreat. And then what happens is you and I meet before the retreat, during the retreat, and then
Yeah.
I'm with you for the 6 months after the retreat to make sure that that integration piece is happening. What did you learn? How did you feel? What did you want to bring home, bring forward? What information does that give you about what else you might want to explore? If this thing piqued your interest, does it really mean this thing, right? Do you really want to lose 20 pounds when you get home from the retreat? Or do you really want to feel more secure and loved and not have to fill the gap with late night snacking, right? And that's what we get to the core of. But it's really hard to do that in a 1 week retreat setting. So it's kind of an add on. And what I'm trying to solve for is for being able to scale that out for people that may not be able to afford both a retreat and an integration program afterwards, right? That
Okay.
kind of becomes the
As
thing.
it's customizable to each person and each budget.
Exactly. And so, I have listed prices of my coaching services and programs and things like that. But the reason that I ask for a clarity call or a discovery call before is because I want to get to know your need, what you want to do, and then I want to tailor that program for what
Yeah, of
kind of
course.
financial and time investment you are comfortable with. And again, from a founder standpoint, the tricky part of that is scalability. So it's not just getting people in the door, right? Lead generation, getting those initial
Yeah.
conversations started, but then it's that ability to connect with somebody to help them understand that they may be assuming that this program is not financially available to them, but you can't tell that from my Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's getting the initial conversation scheduled
And
and then getting them to show up to that initial conversation,
of course,
that
are
connectedness that
you asking any pre-screening questions before they have that initial discovery with you?
I've gone back and forth. I've tested both because I find that that can sometimes scare people away when really they just needed to have a conversation to better understand it. Immediately if you're asked for information, it's a barrier, right? And so, but on the other side of that,
That's
the people
that's
that get
friction
through that
breaks a lot.
barrier are actually more likely to convert into paying customers. Then you've got that other side of it. This is a very intimate business model, right? That requires connection. So I've also got the people that want to meet for coffee 3 or 4 times to leverage expertise and guidance before they sign on for the program. And I spend 4 or 5 hours with them getting to know them because I want to do that. I want to invest that. And then they feel like they've gotten what they need,
Yeah,
right, from those meetings, and they don't sign on for the full coaching program.
I love it, and it's in any organization. It's you need to know more about that person before you present back the right essential solution to them, and you don't want to lead someone down someone a path and it's going to be out time because you don't want to waste your time at the end of the day. But
Right.
it's also their valuable time as well.
That's right.
Um, so how are you finding getting new clients on board today? Is it social content, referrals, partnerships, podcast guesting?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right now, I am completely reliant on social media,
Okay. And
and
how
that is
much?
that.
Yeah, go on.
100% of my marketing is social media right now, just posting daily, trying to, get the value out. Um, I know that that's not the answer. I've worked on enough integrated national campaigns to know that all of the pillars, all of the what are levers need to be operating simultaneously.
Of
But
course.
as a one woman person or a one woman show who is also still going through her own healing journey, right? And needs to listen to her own ancient wisdom that says, turn off the computer right now. You need to go sit in the grass, right? It's like, okay, how do you balance all of
How do
those
you balance
things?
it?
Yeah, I want the
And
technology to be set up to support me so that I can prioritize those personal conversations.
one thing you said to me as well is you don't like walking into conversations unless you're in the right frame of mind to actually help the other person. And that adds to that balance piece.
Mhm.
Um, so how much time are you putting into content creation each week then?
Mm, like 3 hours a day. And it's still very much the early stages of it takes me an hour to edit a 30-second reel well,
Of
right?
course. What would you do with that time if you could outsource 2 hours of it?
I would build programs. I would build more things that people can leverage for those people that may not be able to afford the one-on-one coaching programs.
Awesome.
Because I don't care how much money you make, what you look like, what your story is, where you come from. I am just as interested and I invest just as much time in going and trying to help the unhoused community in Atlanta work on helping people get those foundational needs met. Shelter, food, water, time, warmth, those things. I spend just as much time at the Atlanta mission as I do with one-on-one coaches, as I do trying to build digital programs. And so I want to be able to help every level. But again, this is work because
Right.
if it were up to me and I didn't need to sustain, as much as I want to help people, I
Yeah.
would be doing that on a volunteer basis and I would be living in the jungle, just immersing myself in nature until my time is up, right? We do this because we want to love what we need to do in order to get money to survive, right? It's a trading game.
Yeah.
And so there's also that piece of it, and that this is all just transactions that we're making with each other. Um, but how do you balance that? Because I would love to just say I never need to make another dime again and go help the people that need it most and can't afford it. But we know that trap and that trick.
Exactly. As many of our listeners know, and people that have spoken with me before, strategic AI helps you get some of that balance back.
Yes.
It's putting a lot of that work you're doing and automating it so you don't have to put so much work into content creation, lead generation, nurturing old clients through any sort of materials or blog posts you want to share with them. But that is obviously something that we can touch on at a later date. So
Yeah.
I want to learn more about. Look, you're what I call a solopreneur. You're a one woman show. Are you outsourcing anything at the moment, or is it all done via yourself?
And I know that that is wrong, right? Like I
So,
know that I'm not doing it right.
well,
Um,
what I think is there's gonna be some right bits and there's gonna be some wrong bits. Like,
right.
which parts are feeling well systemized versus which are not, and which still heavily rely on you. So I'm thinking like onboarding, scheduling, payments. That's three things, not scheduling payments.
Yeah, yeah.
Which of those feel well systemized, and which are you still heavily relying on you picking through the weeds?
If I'm being honest, I've got payment. I'm on HubSpot. So, I've
Yes,
got the
feasible.
it's the features are in there. So I feel like the scheduling and things like that are automated. The problem is getting people to the doggone page.
Yeah,
That's the part that I need to automate. It's like I just need to be dealing with an influx of leads so that I can, then I've got a little bit of automation set up, right? But it's really the lead generation piece, actually the lead magnet piece to pull people in, right?
of course.
And then I'm putting in systems to collect email addresses, right? Like that's so important. I've got the systems. It's just I'm the strategist, the copywriter, the
You're everywhere.
designer, the coder, the
You're not just the
deployer.
account director anymore. You're everyone in that team that you're looking after.
And that's jarring because I used to walk into a room and be like, I know exactly what to do. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And now I wake up and I go, I know exactly what to do.
Ah,
Overwhelm, panic,
yes, yeah,
freeze.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
As someone who suffers quite badly from ADHD, those kind of situations overwhelm me. And then it's
Yes.
like, how do I compartmentalize it all and put it into a system? Yeah, and it is tough.
It is
Um,
tough.
One big
It is.
question I have for you, and I kind of think I know the answer already. How are you measuring success?
Mm.
So, client outcomes, retention, referral rates, like through word of mouth, booked consults, or revenue per client? Which one are you measuring at the moment? There's
You
obviously
know,
what you're internally measuring, and there's
yeah,
also what the books are measuring.
that's right. I've got a gap in my measurement that I'm very aware of.
Yeah.
So, first measurement is honestly just revenue generated. And the reason is because it's my only source of income, right? So I'm understanding that every dollar that I'm making, right, is my sole income. Um, and but before that, several rungs back, I've been tracking followers. And that is going back to my intuition, right? I've
Yeah.
just been trying to grow a follower base, and that is crazy difficult. And then you get into the, oh, I need to create viral content. And then you're worried about viral content, not marketing strategy and ecosystem, right? And so you get very tactical very fast. So I was measuring on followers and then revenue. But guess what? Those have 15 things that matter in between them. And the reality is that neither of those needles are really moving because they're not being worked on. They're not being,
Yeah.
outside of me posting every single day. That's it. So it's getting all of those, it's all of it. Honestly, if I think about it, I need to blow up the entire ecosystem and start figuring out where to automate as opposed to being worried about what's the hook that I need to post today. The one thing that I have been really thinking about outsourcing is the social media, but I'm building a personal brand. By Way of Gray doesn't work without Laura Robichaux, right? So I don't want my
Social media is
message
a
to
powerful
come from
tool.
someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So that's it's incredibly powerful, and it's like back to that personable piece that I touched upon before. So you've mentioned HubSpot. What's your current tech stack looking like? Are you using any calendar booking systems, email platforms, social schedulers?
Yeah, the booking system is inside of HubSpot. It's actually a native capability within HubSpot. The problem is that I don't know that it connects to anything else, right? So it's looking at two different Google calendars, and I don't know that the accuracy is there. Payments, I'm manually generating a link, but again, that's because I'm changing the cost per
Yeah.
person, right? And that is getting a little bit weird. And so I do believe that automating some of these things and bringing in customers that are kind of just ready to buy the program as is going to be just as important as creating some of the systems to bring in new people with new program options. Um, so yeah, breaking the audiences down and saying, okay, well, what target audience should I be going after if I just want people to buy outright the $3,500 program that is 12 sessions with me, right? Like, I would love to be able to just get that workflow going because that would be the core center of the business, and then measure each of those things to be able to figure out where do people break off and where do other systems and products need to be built to give them alternate options. Um, so HubSpot, using all of the HubSpot native stuff,
Yeah.
social media, right? But those things aren't connected. And so that's it. That's what I've got. It's HubSpot. Oh, I do have um Zapier. Is that how you say it?
Zapier. I can't say I've heard of it.
Zapier. Oh, okay. Zapier is it's an integration system. It's code to connect systems. And Stan Store. Have you heard of Stan Store?
I can't say I have, but I will look into it after this. 100%.
Yep. I'm interested. Stan Store is basically like think Linktree.
Okay, I know Linktree, of course.
But instead of just being links to other things, you actually, it holds the booking, the scheduling, the payment, all of that in the native system in the social platform. So you can actually, it's like where it pops up and you can actually put your payment information into what appears to be the TikTok or the Instagram platform. It holds all of that. But what I've got is all disconnected systems. Right. And so it's like every single one needs an update every time I do something, but I don't even have the leads coming in
Incredibly manual.
for that to matter yet.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm a
so
mess, Harry. I'm a mess.
feels very disjointed, but
I've
hey,
figured out how to help somebody understand their own stuff, but I have not figured out how to make my technology stack work yet.
hey, and maybe we can help you with some of it. Who knows?
That would be great.
So look, this is a ton of information, and I think it's just so important for anyone listening to this to just to be like, right, because these are all common pains that everyone's facing. You're on your own doing this, and there's no exact correct way to do it. There's no one's going to be like, right, your business is a one size fits all, because it's not at all. Every business is pretty much unique, especially
That's
with
right.
businesses that we talk to on a day-to-day basis. Um, so let's look at the vision. Um, what does scale done right look like for By Way of Grey in the next 3 to 5 years?
Hmm. Scale done right means being able to support as many people as possible
Exactly.
with digital systems and programs,
Yeah.
but that maintain the integrity of kind of the crux of the program. Um, really well done. That means that I am actually training other coaches, right, to deliver the system. And I'm creating programs that are more widespread, potentially speaking engagements, things like that, so that I can hit as many people as possible using the importance of the infrastructure based on the personal relationship being the key piece of the coaching process.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. We
Okay.
could probably sit here and probably unpick what each bit means.
Yeah. But like I want to be able to build an opportunity for people to feel the personal touch on a widespread level, which means that I need to be building the next things that people can leverage, or I need to be in front of as many people as possible, which looks like speaking engagements.
Okay.
So
That
being, yeah,
that actually led me very well onto my next question. It was in the
great.
next in phrase of next 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
which format and audience are you trying to grow? Is that group programs? Is that retreats you mentioned before? Is that, could even look at corporate workshops? I know we haven't touched on that. Digital courses. Which of those ones are you going to be your, potentially your, could I say North Star? I know, don't like using that word. Which one of those are going to be the ones you look to grow the most?
Yeah. It definitely you know, with my background, I both equal parts want to work with corporations and do not want to work with corporations.
Yeah.
I think that there is a tremendous amount of value associated with going into corporations. The problem is that corporations don't necessarily want to fund personal development. They want to fund professional development.
I agree.
So, as much as I want to go into corporations, but I want corporations at the leadership level to understand that personal development is professional development and vice versa, and that people are human first. And so, yes, corporate programs I think are of extreme interest to me. But again, that kind of goes into creating the methodologies that will allow the speaking engagements. Ideally, I'm creating enough valuable engagement points through speaking engagements and creation of personalized products that I am not supporting the one-on-one conversations directly anymore. But but the methodology is still very much part of the whole pie. So as counterintuitive as it is, which is what we experience as founders and entrepreneurs, right? It's this wanting to do everything at once well. It's, I love the integrity of the one on one dynamic, but I want to help as many people as possible. So, how do I bridge that gap? How do I keep the personalized experience while also being able to service 1,000 clients in a room at once and have them walk away feeling like it was made for them?
Yeah. That highly tailored piece.
Yeah.
And
So that's the
it's
North Star is being asked to be on a stage to help as many people as possible at once feel like they are the only person in the room.
That's incredible. And I think
Easy
that is,
challenge, right?
yeah, no, but we want to get you there. And I think off the back of this podcast, I'm incredibly invested myself as I've learned so much, but everything that you've mentioned today, I feel aligned with. And I imagine a lot of our listeners will too. So thank you so much, Laura, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. And hope to probably have you back at some point and see
That
how your story grows.
I'm here for it. Part 2 coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Harry.
Scene.